Well, good morning. It's the appointed time, and we'll call to order the meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board for May the 24th, 2018. You have in your packet and have been furnished copies of the minutes of the previous meeting on April the 26th. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? Been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3, David.
You have in your packet the MAPS 3 Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending April 30th, 2018. I'll go over the highlights real quickly. On the revenue side for the month, $842,427. Fiscal year, $75,342,286. And total revenue of $822,450,681. On the expenditure side for the month, we have $12,344,728. Fiscal year of $87,508,799, and total expenditures as of April 30th of $404,227,124. You also have in your packet the budget and obligations report, and I'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Bob?
Just a question. Is there any revenue lag or any collections yet?
We're through with collections. What you're seeing is adjustments and things that happen based on how the money is collected, and sometimes they go back and re-review it and find out that it should have been to Oklahoma City instead of Bethany. Just various little adjustments, but for the most part, real soon you're going to see revenue of zero.
Okay, so we're not going to see a significant change
for the month
beyond this.
No, this total number is real close to what we're going to end up with.
Other questions? All right, then, let's move to item 4. We have a presentation on transit. We've received the revenue and expenditure report and the budget and obligation report. Shall we approve it? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the report as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's been approved. Item 4, David.
You know, the subcommittee gets a monthly update on various projects that you're all involved in, and today I'd like to give you an update on the streetcar. We haven't seen anything on that lately other than what you see as you drive around. So Doug Smith is here today from Jacobs Engineering to give us an update on the streetcar project.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Good to be back with you again today. It's exciting times on the streetcar project for sure. We're still planning for that December opening and trying to keep everything on track for that. We have 3 streetcars in Oklahoma City, as many of you know, and more on the way very soon to try to get that total of 7 by the time we open. There's testing going on in regard to that, and I'll give you some details on that. We have a maintenance facility which is occupied. People are using the facility. We're having meetings there. That has turned out to be just a beautiful facility, and then finally, of course, the main line, and that's where our heaviest activity is right now, and I'll give you some updates on that. Here's the tracking that we use for what's being built in Brookville, Pennsylvania. This really shows what's going on the factory floor, and you can see all those C's on there marking the completes. You can see those first 6 rows are complete, and so really the 3 vehicles that are vehicle 4, 5, and 6 that are in Brookville, they're all assembled. They're having some final testing done on them. And then number 7, which is the one that came on the line later because they had to stop and build some streetcars for another city, I believe it was Milwaukee. Then they had to retool and come back and build our number 7 because we ordered it last. You might remember we put that order in after we opened our mainline bid and we had a better understanding of our budget. So you can see there that it's in FR2, framing 2, so that just means they're getting the sections, some of the sections put together. I've got some pictures of that. And here's the factory testing status, so you can see the top 3 rows are complete. They're delivered to Oklahoma City. And there's some final testing that we're doing on site. One of those streetcars, That's number 2 is in your packet for what we call conditional acceptance, to go ahead and we're recommending that for today. 4, 5, and 6 are undergoing final factory testing, and you can sort of see the status of some of the various tests and where they are. So that's in progress, and then that's sort of the last things they do before they go ahead and ship them to Oklahoma City. So here's number 5, and this is the 5 and 6 are the ones that are going to be painted green. We saw a picture of this outside, and it's really nice when the builder says that they love the color. They obviously paint a lot of streetcars there, and this is really one of their favorites that I think they've ever done. And so we're thrilled to be able to see this one rolling into Oklahoma City here before long. We're going to, number 3 and 4 were blue, and so we've got the number 3 here, and the next one will come in will be blue, and then we'll have a couple of greens after that. Of course, the last one's going to be red. So just an update on painting. And then here's some pictures of number 7. You can see the framing going on of the walls and the floor, the roof, and then the A-end cab being inspected and ready for painting. Center section there on the bottom being assembled. So on the delivery schedule, we've got the dates there for back in February and March. We got 1 through 3. 4 through 6, we're scheduling those deliveries. We're hoping that in the month of June that we will see number 4 and 5 arrive. And then 6 probably not too far after that. Number 7, maybe October, maybe a little earlier is what we're looking at. And along with that, the vendor does training of the Embark and Herzog operations staff. And so they've got 1 round of mechanic training completed. We've also done some initial driver training out on the non-revenue track, the portion of Hudson where we don't actually get on the route running that center lane. That's what they call the stick time. So they've done some of that. And then I'll get to this at the end, but we are planning to start some of the testing on the Brookville line, the B line schedule actually starting. We're actually doing some of that this week in May. Now here is the schedule graphic we use with our main line, so I'm going to shift over to the main line track construction. And our plan is to complete the Bricktown Loop in May, and as you may have noticed, we do have a complete track in the Bricktown Loop. We have run a test cart around there. We're going to be actually getting a streetcar out on that loop here very soon, maybe within the next 24 hours, we're hoping. But anyway, we are on the verge of getting that going, and then there will be additional testing of the overhead electrical, whatever, and that'll roll on into June. But that'll prove out the electrical system. We'll start doing, as we get into June and July, testing the train switches and some of the other features on the loop. And then we get into October, we'll be ready to have substantial completion on our Midtown Loop, get into final testing of that part of the track with the goal of having, by November, having all our testing wrapped up, all our mainline construction wrapped up, be finishing up our integrated testing, of course, to get ready for revenue service. Here's a status graphic of the various portions. So utilities, you see the blue sections, those are clear, and we are 100% clear of public utilities. So that is very good news for our program because it's a risk item and a cost and schedule risk. Get that out of the way. Track demo, we're about 4,000 feet away from being done with that. You can see some of the orange sections in Midtown. Up on 11th Street, we're still in demo up there. A little bit on Broadway, a little bit on 4th. And then the main section left to get into is Robinson from 4th down to Sheridan. And then similarly, the remaining track construction, about 5,000 lineal or track feet remain to do there. And we're approaching about 80% installed now on track. OCS foundations, of course, these are the things that hold the poles, that hold the catenary wire. We're showing on this graphic we have 10 left, but actually as of today we're down to about 3 left. Station stops are going well, about 2/3 in. All the ones in Bricktown are in. Contact wire is all up in Bricktown, all up on the revenue track. None of it is done in Midtown, although you probably see some of the poles have gone up with the cantilevers. Some of that has gone up on Broadway. So we've got about 2/3 of that length to do. And the traction power sites, we've got the 6 substations. They are all installed, energized, and ready to hot up our overhead system. We're ready to test that. Here's some pictures of the various construction embedded rail going in. This is just north of here along Hudson, looking up toward our curve where we turn onto 4th. And then down on Sheridan, where we're looking west at Robinson. This was actually the very last section of rail in our Bricktown loop that we completed, welded that together, and got us to the passable track for the Bricktown loop. 4th Street, embedded rail ongoing. See, we did the demo on the street, and interesting, on the left side of that photo, we actually saw cut into some old ties there. That's because that was an old streetcar line. And so we found that, and we're building a new line there. So when you see the concrete placement going on there. Up on 11th Street, more embedded rail going in. They're looking west along 11th. OCS pole foundations, this is what I was mentioning. We only have a few of these left, so there's one installing at 10th and Robinson, another one near 4th and Harvey. Electrical systems, a lot more of this work is starting to happen with the wiring of this is pulling in for the train signal there at Scissortail Park at Stop 5. And then also we do rail to earth ground testing to make sure that that residual voltage that's on the rail, that we don't have any electrical leakage into the surrounding concrete or soil that would cause problems for any other utilities. So we make sure there's an insulating boot on the steel rail. We make sure that that's intact and that it's working right. Platform work, you've probably seen these around town. Here's the one at 8th and Broadway that's up. They've got the one out at Dewey. The platform there, that's the transit-only lane, and that's also the terminal point for the vehicles that are running the downtown loop. So those are installed. And we also like to mention May 7th to 11th was National Safety Week. Our contractor is putting up a great safety record on this job. There's one recordable and one lost time incident. They're relatively minor. We take every incident seriously, and they definitely do. But this is an example of our all-hands meeting during that week to talk about safety procedures. And, of course, our goal is 0 incidents, 0 accidents between now and the end of the job. So we're going to keep it up. But we think about safety a lot on this project. You have in your packet a change order and amendment combination, and I won't get into a lot of details on these items unless there's questions, but this is just an example of kind of the issues that we deal with. We do have a lot of different things that we have to work out with the contractor as we go. You can see there's a range of things from utilities to reprogramming some things. That's the truth table revisions that relates to how the train talks to the wayside and the route programming, that we had to make some adjustments there. More water lines, power supply items, just a mixed range of things. And happy to answer any questions on that or this next one, which is the amendment items that go with that. And that's just when we adjust the quantities on our contract. So we're doing that every month. So we did want to say a word about our budget. We tracked that very carefully, and we're down to the point of the project with 6 months to go for a build where now everything's getting tight. And we've been reporting to the subcommittee that we're down below $1 million, and now on our latest update, we believe that we're basically coming right to it. We don't have a bit of contingency left. We have, based on our forecast that we're doing with the contractor, what we think remaining changes and quantity adjustments that we have. In fact, we're just a tad over, and so we're tracking that very carefully, and we're also telling everyone that we don't have extra money for the 5th Street turnback if we wanted to add that tangent track. And there's a generator feature that we evaluated and we're getting a price from the contractor, but we don't have budget to add that either. So we're down to the point where we can't do any betterments. We just have, again, just a little bit over budget just to bring it right in what we're forecasting right now. And outreach. Let's see. Mike, we're going to... Yes, he is.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Manager Todd. Normally, Kristen Torkelson would be providing this update, but she is taking a much-deserved vacation, so I get to give her report. It it's been a while since we've talked to you about what she does. Just a quick reminder, she has over 350 people on her contact list, and given the amount of work that you see that's going on right now, she touches virtually every one of those people at least once a month, either by email, by phone, or by directly visiting them to let them know exactly what the status of construction is, when they may be impacted, and for how long. And with the testing going on, that's just another added element of making sure that people understand what the testing is about, when it's going to occur, the fact that when they see a car coming down the track in the near future, it will not be in service, it will be doing testing. So she's had an opportunity to reach out to all those people to do that. She continues to put out every Friday maps showing where construction is going to be, lane closures, those kinds of things that are going to be happening in the ensuing week. She and another group of folks, including Katie Gustafson from Gooden, are working on the grand opening ceremony, and they actually did a ride through to try and determine best how to do that. There is an event going on in Bricktown, it'll be in Bricktown on the 2nd or the 3rd of June. It's a bicycle race, and it is a circuit race, which means they go effectively in a loop, but they will be crossing the tracks twice as part of this. And they have been working with the organizers of that event to make sure that even though they are going to be going perpendicular to the track, which is the safe way to cross tracks on a bike, they're going to make sure that those crossing areas are as safe as they possibly can be. There are a number of other events that are going on, but the last thing that I want to mention is the Memorial Run. Lots of people had a hand in preparing for the Memorial Run. If you were down there or if you watched on TV, you know that part of the race actually took place in the construction zone between Jacobs and the contractor, the MAP staff, and a lot of other people. The preparation for that was really excellent. There were absolutely no incidents, and the memorial staff, I think, is incredibly pleased with the way that was planned and came off. So just want to keep you updated about that.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Doug?
Just a couple more slides to tell you about testing and commissioning activity. I just want to remind you of a couple things in this project which are unique. One of them is we have a non-revenue track, and that half-mile of track allows us to do a lot of testing before we even get out to where we're running with the traffic. That center lane, we can pretty much go up and down at will, and the status of that South Hudson Road project also not being open has allowed us to advance our testing to a great extent where we can go out and put our streetcars through the paces now that they're on site and check numerous other things. So the first item, first of all, Brookville is on site with their technicians, which is very helpful because anything we find about the car, we have a question, the operations staff are out there, they're playing with it, and they have questions, so the technicians are there. And we use that maintenance facility track and the Hudson non-revenue track to start getting some initial things signed off. And a lot of those integrated tests are now complete. Then the next thing is to get onto the Bricktown Loop, which is another unique feature of this project, which is we can start using that shorter loop to do some things like the burn-in time on the vehicles and get that signed off before we even get into the full Midtown Loop. So these are big advantages, helps us stay ahead of the schedule, find out what problems that we have early on and try to get ahead of them. So May and June now, we're into this testing on the Bricktown Loop, and they're going to see a lot of activity over that. We're actually doing some things this week, and then getting into coming weeks. And all those items that you see there, everything from the mainline track to the platforms, making sure the vehicles clear the platform correctly. As you probably know, there's about an inch between the edge of the vehicle and the platform. So we have to make sure that that got built just right and the track is just right. And so those are the kind of things that we're going to be checking maybe tonight. And then the Midtown Loop, we'll be doing the same things when the time comes in August through November, getting us ready to open up. Committees and teams over there on the right, this is just an example of all the different teams that are meeting for the various functions. The goal is that when we believe that we're all tested and we're ready to open, we go to the ODOT State Safety Office, the SSO, we go to the FTA, we said we are ready to open, please certify and agree that we're ready to open, and so that's one final box that has to be checked, that we're intentionally having these committee meetings, going through our agendas and making sure that everything's covered there. Well, that's the complete update for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Doug, on those, the final, getting the regulatory approval to open, is that a process that is normally pretty short, and are they in the loop as we go along, or would we anticipate perhaps a delay just waiting on that approval?
That's a very difficult question to answer. There's a lot of variability in the process. Sometimes it depends on the specific auditors that you get and so on. But what we try to do is the ODOT people that are here in Oklahoma City, we try to meet with them and say, this is the documentation we're putting together. Do you have any questions? Is there anything we can show you in advance? And those kinds of meetings are being set up with them to be able to show them, you know, okay, you're going to do an audit. We know you're going to do an audit. Is there anything that we can do to help make that smoother? And we want to be very transparent with them. If there's anything they're concerned about or they think we're missing something, we want them to tell us now so we can address it. Ultimately, it comes down to that day in November when they have to say, yes, it's approved to open for public service. And there's usually some amount of angst when that time comes. So we just don't know.
But it's both the state and the Federal Transportation Authority that have to approve? Did you say?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
There's both a state approval and a federal approval for that. Is that what you said?
Well, it's all one thing.
It's all one thing, okay.
But they have to work together, the FTA and the ODOT SSO.
Okay.
It's all one thing.
Good, thank you. Any other questions for Doug? Bob?
This sort of a random question occurred to me the other day, and I think I saw an ad about when the streetcar is actually in operation, you know, make sure you park your car so that it doesn't block the track, you'll be towed. How do you deal with that if the streetcar encounters a car that is improperly parked and is blocking the track? I know you can tow it, but I mean, is the streetcar going to sit there for an hour waiting for the tow truck to get there?
So this is where the training of the community comes in. And that's why Kristen and ADG's outreach efforts are so important. They're, we even thought about, okay, we're going to tow a vehicle around the Bricktown Loop. But if someone is improperly parked, if they're not within that white line, then that's going to be a problem. Our streetcars are going to get stuck, and we're not going to be able to drive on through. So we thought about doing some things like putting out no parking signs just for the testing phase, or actually, putting notices on vehicles that are improperly parked that the day before. Like if we see someone normally parked in a space there, put a note on their car and say, if you park this way again, you will be towed. So we're trying to train people that, you've got to stay behind that line, and there will be a consequence of that. So it really, I think most communities that open up a streetcar, they find that all these kinds of things, like the delivery drivers that like to stop and take, FedEx or whatever, take a package in, they think they have 5 or 10 minutes, here comes a streetcar, and they block it. And so anyway, those kinds of things have to be worked out, and the parking is very similar.
That'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, I think our committee asked that a while back. If it does happen, so education obviously is the prevention, but if it does happen, we have a towing company on contract that is ready fairly quickly, though, right? I mean, and also the passengers can just get off, right? But still, the system is immobile at that point, but I think there's a Johnny-on-the-spot tow truck that's on a contract at any hours.
Well, and I would hope in cooperation with, I guess it's the city that would decide how the parking spaces are set up, and that they would minimize the number of places where either parallel parking or angled parking would interfere with the track, and try to reduce those to the barest minimum possible.
Well, as Doug's group went through doing the plans, that was all analyzed, but it's very difficult. It's downtown. There's a lot of parallel parking. And then there's that angled parking on Automobile Alley. So, as Doug said, it's just something that everybody's going to have to get used to.
Other questions for Doug? Congratulations. Sounds like things are going well, Doug. We really appreciate the great effort
Well,
you
we
guys are
appreciate
putting
the
into
opportunity
this.
to work on it. It's exciting times. We'll keep
It is very exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us into item 5. As he mentioned in his presentation, David, anything you want to add?
Yes, sir. This is recommended resolution for approving conditional acceptance of streetcar number 201802, MAPS 3 Modern Streetcar Vehicles Project M3-S005. There's a sheet that you were handed out, a document that was inadvertently left out of this conditional acceptance, and it's the punch list items that needs to be added in there. So if you should choose to move this item, it would be as amended with this document. But this is very similar to buildings where we do substantial completion. This is a car that everything except these punch list items are done, and we're ready to accept it.
I'll move it.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there further discussion?
With the amended document.
With
Yeah,
the
move as
amended
amended.
document that we have in our hand. All right. With that amendment, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution approving change order number 11 and amendment number 10, MAPS 3 Modern Streetcar Mainline increase at $94,156, project M3-S007. Doug briefly went over the change order and the amendment items. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them, and Doug's still here.
Questions or discussion? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented in your packet. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the good work that's going on. All right. Item 7, David.
Item 7 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, MAPS 3 Convention Center, awarding contract to Flintco LLC, base bid plus alternates 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and accepting unit prices in the amount of $168,177,535, and approving contracts and bonds, project M3-C003. This is for the base bid and all the alternates except alternate 4, which is the central plant equipment. You saw a presentation at final plans. We're very happy with where we came in on the bids. We're significantly under budget, and Flintco's just chomping ready to get started.
Well, without a doubt, this comes with the unanimous recommendation of the Convention Center Subcommittee and a fair amount of jubilation that this has all come in not just within the budget, but substantially below. So we're recommending that we approve this resolution. Are there questions or discussion?
I had a question. Item 4 was the HVAC equipment, I think.
Yes.
And that was in there pending whether or not we got a contract, I guess, with
Veolia.
Veolia for
Right.
providing heat and air. And so I guess we're having a contract with them, but I assume there was a cost-benefit analysis that was...
It's the next item on the agenda.
Okay.
That yes, we did a present worth lease cost life cycle analysis on it. There were a lot of people involved in that. There was the mechanical engineer from Populous, Henderson Engineering. It included us. It included ADG. certainly included Populous, it included our finance people and our energy manager here, and it also included Veolia to get the rates where we needed them to be in order for this to be feasible. I can continue on it, or whether I can cover it in the next item, but
Fine.
But if you want to, since we're voting on this, I can tell you that using Veolia gives us greater redundancy, and there could be significant cost savings with the way they can operate the pumps on non-peak days, those kind of things. The costs are real close to what we're already paying for the Cox Center, so there's not a big jump in that. The subcommittee, a member on the subcommittee mentioned that he has used Veolia and was extremely pleased with them. It reduces the amount of people that have to be in the convention center itself to operate that equipment. It's just a commodity that we receive, the chilled water and steam, and it heats and cools the building.
Michael, the subcommittee asked a good number of questions about the financial viability of Veolia and questions that I think you all would be comforted to hear. The answers were all very positive, and we're thinking that this is a good alternative, but it was roundly discussed in the subcommittee. Yes, Bob.
In the unlikely event that something should happen to Veolia down the line, are the plans for the convention center designed in such a way that we could revert to sort of a self-contained HVAC system?
Yeah, what we had in the design is the ability to put the central plant in that we needed, and we also had space for expansion so that we could put more equipment in there at a later date. That space is still going to stay. Veolia is going to put some boilers in there to do the hot water on site separately. They'll be separated from all that, but all that room now will become storage. But if there comes a time whenever we decide we don't want to use Veolia anymore, there is room there to add that equipment at a later date.
Yeah, I want to mention we've got Kevin and Randy here from Populous, and if you have other questions, they can. But Kevin, I'll offer you the chance to say you guys have been part of this, the whole process. Are you comfortable with where we are today and the having Veolia do this?
Yes, it's good to see you all again. David has hit everything right on the head there. There's so many benefits with using Veolia. It gives the building just so much more freedom and flexibility. Besides the savings and costs that it achieved for us, having additional storage for the operator is going to be huge. Not having to maintain the equipment, letting Veolia provide it and run it. Veolia provides for many other pieces of the city already, so all those advantages came into effect, as well as purchasing new equipment later on down the road. Had we had the equipment after 20-year lifespan of some of the equipment have to get replaced out. So all those costs associated with that really made the Veolia choice the right move, as long as the city could come to an agreement on that with Veolia. And you're right, we had a lot of rounds of discussions and things on that, but the building is still built to supply or have room for that should we ever need to go back and do it.
Other questions for David or for Kevin? All right then, thank you, Kevin. We have before us the resolution ratifying and approving the item before you. Shall we approve it? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for accepting the bid on the convention center. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. That then brings us to item 8, which, Michael, is the issue about our contract with Veolia. So, David?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item 8 is recommend resolution approving energy services agreement with Veolia Energy Oklahoma City Incorporated for the MAPS 3 Convention Center. There's an agreement in your packet. If you choose to move on this item also, I'd like to point out that the last sheet needs to be removed. It was accidentally pulled off the copier and put in there, so it's not a pertinent document. But I hit the high points on that. I think this is a good way for the city to go with this. I also want to point out, though, that it's not completely necessary that we do this, but we think this is the best thing. Had we not had this option, Populous designed a building that would function, and we could have the equipment in there, and it would function as it should, but we just feel like this is a better option.
All right, further question, Michael?
David, the rates, I assume, are indexed to natural gas prices or oil, something? I mean, if energy prices go up, the others, I assume, can...
For the inflation from year to year, it's based on the CPI.
Okay.
And this agreement is very close to the same agreements that were just approved by council for the police headquarters and the courts building.
Right.
That they're doing.
It's not indexed to fuel prices?
Yes, it is, Mr. Adams. I can't explain it all to you on how it works. I don't have it memorized. But yeah, there are things in there that have to do with the cost of the gas that they have. But most of it is based on that CPI index.
Are there other questions or discussion? Other questions for David on this? Would you mind checking to see if the... Further questions or discussion? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. That brings us to new business, and we do have an item in new business that I wanted to mention to you. Some of you are already aware of this because David has started this process already, but I wanted to talk to you just a moment about the pleasant problem of having excess money. Now that the convention center bids have been approved, and of course it will go to the council and they'll have to approve it, but since this is our meeting, David has put on the subcommittee agendas that have met this month, and it will be discussed next month as well, the opportunity for subcommittees to request additional funds. I have met with David and with Mike Mize of ADG, and we have come to the thinking that we continue the process that's already in place in using this, and that is to say that ideas for use of the additional money would be on MAPS 3 projects, and they would originate in the subcommittees, and the subcommittees would bring recommendations to this board, and this board would then make recommendations to the council for their decision-making process. And so the idea is I've been asked by the mayor to suggest a process for recommendations for use of the excess money, which we're thinking now, are we not, David, that it's about $31 million?
$31 million in excess collections and what is left of the contingency and interest.
So this is not inconsequential, and from being at many of your meetings, I know that in every subcommittee, the one good thing our process has afforded us is time to review and think about how we might enhance what we've already done. And in many instances, as Doug said earlier, we've seen things that we would have done, but because of budget constraints, we haven't done. And so that's not true on every project, but it's true on some. And I know that Michael Dover's committee talked about this yesterday, and I just want to offer the idea to you and to ask for your input if you think there's a better or a different way to do this. But we have a structure that's been working pretty well for 8 years, and so our idea is we're going to continue to do it the way we've been doing it and suggest that to the mayor and council and see if they approve. Bob?
I was just going to suggest, as you were talking, it occurred to me that maybe we ought to structure in a way where, in terms of any wish list items for any particular project, that the first source of funding for any additional item come from the contingency funds before we then go to excess collection.
David, you want to be heard on that?
Well, we've spent a considerable amount of the contingency. There's not a whole lot left of that, but I think that's fine if you want to spend that on out.
The counsel that the mayor suggested to me was that we don't want to create any undue expectations. We don't want to create disappointment. So this is not just a matter of anything we could think of, but there are many items out there that would really enhance the existing projects, or, for example, if we were to decide to do a fifth wellness center. So there are some really substantial ways to do this, but my caution to you is let's not give unreasonable expectations of the subcommittees that all of you chair, but let's open this process to ultimately be prioritized here and then to the council as well. Michael?
Just a couple of questions, I guess, or thoughts maybe. The $31 million that David mentioned, I think, is the excess collections and the contingency funds. In addition, the convention center bid came in $20 million or so below their budget. Is the thought that that money will be freed up to be considered for other projects outside the convention center, or is that potentially additional available funds?
I don't think that decision has been made. I think that the Convention Center Subcommittee will be looking at things within the budget that they have that might, and some suggestions were made at our meeting on Tuesday of a couple of ideas that they've asked staff to explore that are not included now. But I guess the ultimate spending will be up to the council, and they have not given us any direction on whether or not, for example, Convention Center Subcommittee could be used for streetcar. And so we haven't gotten to that level of detail, Michael. I think it's a great question, but it's something that will have to be included in the process that we submit to them. So I think that's a very relevant question, and we'll try to get an answer.
Okay. Secondly, has there been any indication from council, or do you intend to ask council if they have any priorities? Because in the past they've given us certain priorities. I remember additional sidewalks once upon a time came more or less from the council. In addition, we've had and asked a couple of times, or at least once, for projects that are kind of outside our original scope, and we've considered those too. So is there anything like that you know of pending, or any guidance from the council?
They've not conveyed that to me. On the items that you mentioned, when they asked us to spend more money on sidewalks, they did convey that message to me, and we did work it through our process. The same thing on the parking garage. So I would expect that there will be a line of communication. If there is some desire on the part of the council to ask us to consider something specifically, and at least the way that has been communicated with me in the past has been through the staff. The city manager talks to David about what the desires of the council are, and then he conveys that to us. And so I haven't had any communication with individual members of the council about any of that. And I expect the line of communication will be what it always has been, what I'll call regular channels.
Right. And then I guess my last thought, as we go in to consider these various wish lists that come out of the subcommittees, I think it'd be beneficial to have an analysis, maybe ADG or somebody can do, that would show kind of the original budgets for each of the projects and what maybe monies they've already received in excess from there, and then kind of what a ratio, I mean, not that I propose that we do this, but kind of a ratio of the excess funds, what would each committee, if they've got the same proportional amount, kind of be entitled to, and we can kind of do some stuff to do, and analyze some of that, I think would be helpful.
David, we'll count on you to talk to,
Well, we've already started that process.
Yeah.
I've already started putting that together at my desk.
so, all good points. Michael, anyone else have a question or a comment? Okay, well, I just wanted you to know, some of the subcommittees started on that this month. The subcommittees that didn't meet that will be an item on their agenda for next month. And so this isn't something that we have to decide immediately, but as these enhancements come forward, some of them will have time frames that have to be addressed more quickly than others. So there will have to be a prioritizing, and so I think you can expect it to be 2 or 3 months before we are back with you, because each subcommittee will have to have their chance to discuss this. Wouldn't you say, David?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's all I have. Anybody else have new business? All right. That brings us to the subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee want to be heard beyond what we've already talked about today?
I would just like to mention that, that's not the microphone. I would like to mention that yesterday at our subcommittee, the Senior Wellness Subcommittee, I'm excited to say that we expect that the fourth RFP should be ready by staff the next 2 to 3 months. So we'll be hitting the ground pretty soon looking for an operator for our fourth wellness.
Where's that located?
David, you want to talk a little bit about that? Or
Well, the subcommittee identified a couple of areas for preferential location. One of them is southwest Oklahoma City, and one of them is, I guess you could describe it more western Oklahoma City, midwestern area is what they're looking at. But we'll put that document together and get it back to the subcommittee, and then you'll see it in, I don't know, a month or 2.
Well, I would mention from the Convention Center Subcommittee that it was a meeting of celebration, and everybody was feeling great about the bids and the process that had gone on. I'll just mention that now, Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think the groundbreaking is scheduled for June the 15th, and wanted to issue a special invitation to all of you. It's to come to the groundbreaking for. Katie, remind me what the location is.
Well, we're still trying to figure out, we're working with Lenco to figure out the best spot, but it'll be on the site at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it's essentially right there at 5th Street in Robinson, right in that general area where the convention center will be.
That'll be great. Hope those of you that are here can attend. That's all from the Convention Center Subcommittee. Anybody else? All right, then. That brings us to informational items. You have in your packet, the informational item is A. David, any comments you want to make about that?
Well, we did some work on some gas line stuff out at the fairgrounds, and it was important enough that we just went ahead and did it since it was a gas line and used a city contract on that.
Okay. Any questions? All right, then. David, it's time for item 12, your update on any additional items.
Well, just real quickly, Wellness Center 2 is now open. We had the ribbon cutting, and that was very successful, very well attended. I'm really happy that center is open now. Trails and sidewalks. Sidewalks are still under construction in 2 areas of Oklahoma City, and then the Phase 3 trails are under construction, and that's the 13-mile loop around Lake Draper. We have all 3 of those contracts under construction. We talked about the convention center today. Park construction is underway, making great progress out there. There's just a lot of people and a ton of work going on out there, and we continue with preliminary design of the lower park. And we heard about all the streetcar today. So that's all I have.
Great. Any questions for David about any of those projects? All right, then, we'll move to item 13. Any comments by the board? Anyone want to be heard additionally? Bob?
Just one question, not a pleasant topic, but what is John Pettis' status? on this board.
I'm going to let David or Mark correct me on this, but what I understand is he has resigned from the council, and this seat is reserved for a member of the council.
Right,
So-
and there'll be a new member appointed.
Okay, is that a mayoral
Yes, sir.
appointment?
And I think the process is underway. Anything else? All right, then. It is, that completes our agenda. If there's nothing else, Nathaniel moved for adjournment, seconded by Dee. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.